Welcome to the Driven to Succeed Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Olson, and today I have a special guest, Alyssa Burke, Keller Williams.
Hi there.
Hi. We met, and a lot of times I do meet a lot of people on social media because I'm very active, but I'm
Yeah.
seeking out other people that are active. And, looking at watching some of your stuff over the summer, and that's what made the connection and so forth. So we got to meet the other day, and I thought it would be fantastic to actually bring you on the show.
Thank you.
So Alyssa, tell me, like, what was your journey like getting into real estate? Because you're going into your third year.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
started on a team.
I did. Yeah. So I got licensed a couple of years ago, kind of right after the COVID craziness. I got laid off my job and I was like, what am I going to do next?
Right.
Yeah. So, I just decided that maybe, I want to be more entrepreneurial, business owner, and have kind of the freedom that comes with that. So I decided real estate. I'd kind of done a little bit of like home staging before. So I was kind of in the industry, but
Right.
with a different angle.
Right.
And so yeah, so I got licensed and I was on a team and that was good. I think, as a new agent, one of the hardest things is, getting your business off the ground and getting experience. And being on a team allowed me to get quite a bit of experience in my first year, that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. And that kind of I springboarded from there.
Yeah, and that's, to be honest, that's the way to do it. I respect that a lot. I started on a team too, because it's just like, what,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing, right?
Right.
And I've watched, the people that do stay with it, but so many get burnt out trying to go it on their own right away. And that's all they used to do in the past, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, become an agent and join, Edina Realty or,
Right.
Century
They've
21,
changed so much.
right?
Yeah.
And now it's team settings,
Yeah.
and but I believe in it because it really does help new agents,
Mhm.
because there is so many things that go into a real estate transaction, right?
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
when you got into it, like, did you imagine like all the stuff that's going to come up once you got a house under contract?
No. I mean you do your courses and you take your test and you pass and that's all dandy, but really applying that in real life is kind of the next hurdle and it's really kind of a learning curve as
Right.
you get started. Each transaction is different, each client is different, each house is different. And so you're, presented with numerous things that they probably didn't cover in your licensing, or maybe if they did, you probably forgot it. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of,
Well, not only, that's interesting. When we're talking about licensing, going and taking your test, and many people in many industries can say the same thing. And it's like you have to have the hands-on experience, right? You can
yeah,
go to four-year college, you can go to your graduate program, but it's still ultimately in the end, it comes down to actually doing the work
yes,
and learning on the job, right?
yes,
Because the textbooks can't teach you this. And specifically, other industries, you don't have to be a sales side of it, right?
right,
So now you have to know all of this, get under contract. Maybe you got a 1920 home
right.
with, like, what do we call it? The old fuse, turn-in fuse, the tube style.
Yeah, the knob and tube.
Knob and tube, there
Yeah,
you go, right? And wiring, and they're like, oh, well, is this even up to code? Like, are we gonna pat? Like,
yeah,
stuff like that. So I believe in having that team lead and having the resources, because when it comes down to it, the clients don't know this at all,
no,
right? And specifically, you're a first time home buyer, right?
right, right.
And so having that knowledge and going through that process is key.
Huge.
And because it there takes a lot. I mean, so many people burn out because 90 days, 120 days, 180 days, you don't have any transactions. Well,
It's
that was
discouraging.
right.
It is.
So if you're going on your own and you're trying to get your own business, well, mom and dad probably ain't buying a house
Right. I
right
know.
away.
Yeah.
So you can use your own sphere, but then, and I've seen it before too, is when you use your own sphere too, is like, well, do I really want to use them? I'm customer number one, right?
Right. Yeah. I
And
mean, do you want them to be your test subject or,
Right.
you
Right.
know, but um yeah, I mean, working your sphere is good, and especially as a new agent, you can try that, but sometimes you run into things, it's not always going to be the easiest thing working with your friends and family, you
Yeah,
know.
and there's people that it's literally won't,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's, I've seen it, inside my own family,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, well, we all are like, there's many people in my family that's on the real estate side or on the, I'm the only lender, I guess. But
Hmm.
there's other people that are, but it's, people are, confidential about certain things. And
Yeah.
like, if something goes wrong, then they could hold a grudge, right?
Right.
That's where people could really get, kind of that's it. So yeah, just calling your sphere to get started is super hard,
It
right?
is.
And
It's
then
super uncomfortable.
and then you don't have the money for marketing,
No.
right? You don't have the money for this. You're like, okay, well, how am I supposed to spend all this money and do all this? But we were talking earlier, and you had mentioned some of the activities that you do, like the outreach that you already do, and like you played hockey in high school,
I
for
did.
example,
I
right?
did.
So,
Yes.
this is a little bit about get to know Alyssa. So tell me more about your hockey experience and like what you do now.
Yeah, so I mean, I started playing when I was 6 and played all the way through high school. I played a little bit in college. And still love the sport, and I just wanted to give back to the program that I developed out of. And so yeah, I'm sponsoring a local hockey team, the Armstrong Cooper girls high school team.
Awesome.
So yeah, I look forward to getting to some of their games and cheering them on. That'll be fun. Another thing, one of my clients is involved in a nonprofit, and they assist with families who are experiencing housing insecurity. And everyone needs a place to live at the end of the day.
Right.
And so it feels good to be able to help people in that aspect. It's not a transaction, but doing what I can to give back, feels good.
Yeah, and I love this industry by giving back because we put first time home buyers into a home. I mean, there's no greater feeling because
Oh my
a lot
gosh,
of
yeah,
people like we're closing on one in just a couple of weeks, and they literally said we'd never even imagined we'd be buying a home, right?
it's
We
huge.
thought it would be out of reach for us. We didn't think we had the credit. We didn't think we had the money down, and we found the right programs for them, and
So
and
many
they're just
programs out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. There is, and and that's where, um, I mean, frankly, just on our last podcast we talked about 60% of home buyers are people, 60% of people out there think you have to have 20% down to buy a home, right? And
That's
that's
not true.
no, that's totally not true. I mean, we have different programs with as little as $1,000 down and you can get into a home, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many house hacking things that we do,
Yeah.
you know, uh, Fannie Mae, 5% down, starts November 18th, 5% down for 2 to 4 unit.
Nice.
So that
That's
was,
a great way, to
yes,
like have a place to live and maybe get some passive income as well.
100%. If I
Yeah.
could go back to being like 24 years old, 25 years old, buying my first home and buy a fourplex with just 5% down, it's amazing what the life trajectory is for that
Oh
opportunity.
yeah.
Obviously I didn't. I bought my own house and then I sold that one, bought a different one. I did the traditional.
Mhm.
But if, people that can do that, it's, I now that I've been doing this job for 8 years or 9 years now, um, I'm showing, I've seen the people that the first house this kid bought was 20, he was 20 years old and he rented out every room, 500 bucks a room. And, it was and again, this was 8 years ago. So prices were lower,
Yep.
rates were lower and so forth.
Different
But he
market.
rented to all his friends. And then like 2 years later, he bought another one. And then 2 years later, he bought another one.
Just snowballs.
And last I heard, he's gone into commercial and he's buying apartment buildings
Nice.
in 9 years. So,
That's incredible.
yeah. So, I mean, he's
Anyone can do
super
that though.
frugal. He had a
Right?
salary job, but anybody can do that,
Yeah,
realistically. So
absolutely.
I mean, and that's where growing wealth really, really helps, like,
Yeah.
I mean, from if you are motivated to do that. Now people lives change, you get families and you can't move every year after that.
Right. Yeah.
Can't be because what he did was house hacking 101, right? Whereas he bought the house, rented all the rooms out, and then just 5% down buy the next house.
Hmm.
Rented all those rooms out again. Now he's renting all these rooms plus these rooms. And he did that every 2 years he was doing it. And he would, cash flow enough to put 5% down the next time.
Yeah.
Well, you hit a certain number of homes, you can't do that anymore because then he's staying in that one home. Now he's putting 20% down. But again, once he started cash flowing four or five homes, now that's a whole different story.
Oh yeah.
And then now he has the rental experience, he has the commercial space. Now he goes into commercial lending, which I don't do, so I wish I did,
It's a
but
whole different ball game.
it's a whole different ball game. But anyway, going back to all the different programs and the things that are coming up and so forth. Now, Alyssa, what you really go above and beyond. And so what sets you apart? Like why do people like working with you?
Well, I mean, there's so many agents out there,
Yes.
obviously, and we're all licensed to do the same thing at the bottom line or at the baseline. So, what I found is that by going above and beyond, for my clients and everything's situational. What a client needs is going to be different than what the next client needs. But like I mentioned, I have experience with staging homes, so to save my sellers a little money, I will go consult them,
Yep.
use maybe some of their furniture, maybe I'll bring some of my furniture, my
Right.
decor. We can collaborate and
Right.
make it presentable for photos and showings and whatnot. I've helped buyers like move like out and into their new homes,
Yes.
save them a little money there.
Right.
We had something come up with, my sellers under or my buyer slash sellers underwriting once, and I was willing to, put forth little money to close the gap because they just needed to come up with a little extra money, for
Right.
the closing
Right.
table. So, I was willing to help them with that just to get them to close.
Mhm.
So whatever needs to be done, I'm willing to do.
Right.
And I think that's important, it may not be like in my job description, but if somebody needs help, then why not?
Yeah, and absolutely, because now, when you take that next step with your clients, I mean, that just is going to be that referral partner, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and the biggest thing is always
that's
being
the hope
top of
at least.
mind, right? That's the
Yeah.
hope, right? And so many people that I've seen have come across, specifically in, I don't know who's all listening to this, but some of the older people that, I mean, that are really successful, they're kind of on autopilot, so it's easy. But then some of them just, it's like, okay, we're in the home and, okay, you're going to get some mailers and stuff from me, but
Yeah.
about it, right?
Yeah.
So are you the top of mind? My goal, my strive is to always be, I want to do such a good job, not set the bar too high, but do such a good job that I am the number one top of mind,
Yeah.
so that way they hear so and so at work is looking to buy a home. Hey, I got a guy for you, right? Or I got a girl for you over, that I got the team that can do everything for. They did this and this and this. And it's, and that's what I want because, marketing is hard, right?
Oh
We
my gosh.
were just talking about
Yeah.
that. It's,
Be expensive and some of it works, some of it doesn't.
right.
And the whole trial and error, process of figuring out what type of marketing you want to do,
Mhm.
is tricky.
I've thrown away thousands
Yeah.
of dollars over the last like 5 years specifically on like online leads and like helping people buy Zillow leads and like
I'd rather not buy leads. I would just
it's
rather,
so hard, right?
people I've worked with, to give them such a great experience that they would have no issue, referring me to
Exactly.
their friends and family
Yeah, I
and
always
not,
love the text
yeah.
that, I always tell people, hey, I'm the guy, make sure you always tell everybody, but then you go get the text like, hey, do you mind if I share your contact info? Absolutely. That's what I'm
Absolutely.
here for.
Yes, you didn't even have to ask.
Yes, the warm handoff is always the great because so I did some coaching this last weekend and we were talking about that. And one of the things is that 60% of home buyers go online and do their research before they contact anybody, right? So when they do that, guess what happens? They get triggered, they get people calling them and so
Yep.
forth. But out of those 60% of people, before they talk to an agent and talk to a lender that I should say that they end up talking to both of them. But most of the time they did their research online, they come back to somebody that they know or that was referred to them,
Yeah.
right? Like the vast majority. I think it's like less than 20% stay with that original people that they talk to if they're doing it online.
Yeah.
So that's why and sometimes the online ones are very, very challenging because the reason why they answered the phone or they're reaching out to you on Facebook or something like that is because they have some challenging obstacles to get past, right?
Yep.
So they're a little bit harder, but regardless, the amount of time and energy and focus it takes to do online is so much easier to put that energy into your clients,
Yeah.
right? Instead.
Yeah.
And, okay, so you had to give up some money to help them get closed, but guess what? It got closed. Buyers and sellers, everybody's happy.
It's a win-win.
Yep.
And that's at the end of the day, just making sure everyone's happy with the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
is, the main goal.
Right.
It's, I don't know, give a little, you get a little. So,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
no big deal.
What, so you talked about the nonprofit one of your clients have, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned that. So can you go into more detail on that at all or
Um,
that you're affiliated with?
yeah, I mean, this isn't like an ad or anything paid,
Sure.
but uh yeah, so they raise funds and they're actually purchasing some property in Coon Rapids. And this is going to be temporary housing for families who are, needing a place to stay. They are assigned a caseworker to help them with, find resources. Maybe it's, help with financial planning and all of that, to prevent them from being like staying in there in the temporary housing to free them from their burdens.
Right.
So yeah, so it's a program to, help people who are going through a hard time and get them back on their feet. And I think we could use more of that in society,
100%.
my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, so
There's
I
a lot of waste in
more of
this
that.
world of money going to different places, but we definitely need to do that for homes, in my opinion. There's
Yeah.
not, yeah. You go to LA and you're like, holy cow. And you go to downtown in some areas and you're like, wow, and it wasn't like this 10 years ago, right? Um, and now you put, inflation on top of it, home prices higher, interest rates higher,
Yep.
and, situations happen, right? Real life happens,
It
it's,
does.
and people, from one year to the next, there's major things can happen in somebody's life,
Yeah.
right? They're unforeseen. And so, I'm very impressed that you're part of that, right? And, as being in this business, you like to give back, right? That's one of the things that you always said you want to give back, right?
100%.
And so that's what's the most impressive, right? And it's funny because you can watch all these shows online, HGTV, or specifically selling Santa Barbara or
Right.
selling whatever, right?
Selling sunset or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So you have all these, agents on there and they're just clamored out and like
Mhm.
1.2 million, 10.2, like all these different runs. And
Yeah.
the grand scheme of things, that's fun to watch. It's entertainment, you know, but it's not the real world where the majority of us work in, right?
No.
So like I cut my teeth literally into this day, as first time home buyers, down payment assistance, helping those, different kind of communities. And, I've had, some of my best clients are from the Liberian community and they just, they work a ton. Some of them work two full-time jobs, right? To make things,
Grinding.
made, and they're just grinding. And when they get into homes, there's not a better satisfaction to helping them out. And
Oh
they're
my God.
just so grateful too, it's
Yeah.
just fun, but everybody is, whether it's they're buying their forever home or they're downsizing, our job is to be that, not just a loan officer, not just a real estate agent.
No.
There's so much more to it,
We're
right?
playing a huge role. I mean, buying a house is a lot of times, one of the largest purchases a person will make in their lifetime,
Hmm.
and then for them to trust us to help them get there is huge. It's profound. And yeah, I mean you're setting people up for success, whether it's they're doing it for investment purposes or just getting a place to live and getting out of maybe having rentals and having, their own house. I mean, that's huge.
Right. And there's so many different situations. There's, a new divorce, right? And they're coming from a big house,
Yep.
and it's like, hey, we had this beautiful 5-bedroom house, and now, I can only afford a 3-bedroom, townhome, or, and just understanding those needs and
Yeah.
helping them through, and knowing that that this is like temporary. So a lot of time, I guess what I'm getting at is we end up being such counselors
Yeah.
through it all. So
Yeah.
we're a pile of hats, right?
Yeah.
Which hat am I going to put on for this customer,
I'm here
and
for it.
yeah, so it's understanding that. So back to, your journey to becoming in real estate. So you did staging. Did you ever do any other sales jobs to like
Um, Not really. I worked retail a little bit and
yeah,
there was a little commission with that. So there was, the sales
well, you were
aspect.
helping people, right? So
Yeah.
you weren't just like I came from, data, right?
No,
Not
yeah.
talking to anybody. And
Yeah. Yeah. I've worked I mean, quite a few jobs until, I mean, I think this is kind of my lifelong career now. I think I finally found what I want to do.
right.
It took a while to get here, but I've done childcare. I've worked in childcare centers. I've done like nannying for a family, wonderful family, by the way. And it's very, very rewarding, and anytime you can kind of get involved with people to make things easier, I think that kind of floats my boat and kind
Yeah.
of fills my bucket, I should say.
Nice. Well, in having all those experiences really does help when you're with customers, clients, borrowers, buyers, whatever we want to call them, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can identify those situations. You can connect with the kids, you can connect with the parents, and
Yeah.
so that really helps. It was interesting. One of the one of the things, I just ordered 10 of her books. So one of the people I was with on the retreat, Jill Underwood, by the way, she's um, author of these children's books about moving,
Oh,
and like what it means to move, and like because it's scary for kids,
huge transition.
right? And she's been in the industry for a long, long time, and she wants to transition out of being a loan officer at this point, and being more of an author. And she's got this whole book lines that she's making. So it's incredible. I ordered 10 of them off of Amazon for my families that have kids.
Those would
So
be
it's
really good closing gifts.
yeah. So, because I used to just do a straight up, here's a gift card to Home Depot, right? Good
Mhm.
for you, right?
Yeah.
Now
I mean,
it's
it's very practical.
right.
A lot of people probably need to make a couple trips
I'm not
to
the
the Home
best
Depot,
gift giver
but
ever, right? And
very
and I've seen
practical.
some agents come in with just like these huge, gift bags and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
um, so now I'm trying to be more purposeful, right? And like, okay, and really identify, because again, that's the next level for me,
Yeah.
right? I just needed help with that and understanding, hey, maybe I should change it up a little bit. There's one little thing you can tweak, you can help you, right?
Yeah.
But the main thing is, what I like and why I bring people on, such as yourself, is to really get to know you. Our audience knows you, and so forth. So you had mentioned you had some questions for me, maybe. Do you, or did we get through most of them at this point?
I think we like kind of got through most of them.
Okay.
But
I like that you came prepared. I mean,
yeah, I have my notes all
yeah,
ready to go.
yep. I mean, I'm the king of winging it most of the time. I'm trying to get better at that. But well, Alyssa, it's been absolutely great having you on the show.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to working with you. I have a gift for you. I don't have it right in front of me. It's in my office, but I have a gift for
Lovely.
you. A book that I'm really working on. What I've done in my career, and I've built another company, and I don't have an MBA, I have a 4-year degree, right? I got in sales and management. That was my purpose, was to go down that road, but I started selling cars, making great money, got into finance,
Yeah.
never had that. So now I've had to teach myself a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because I had a hard time reading books growing up. Like when I was young, great. But as soon as I hit my teenage years, I really had a hard
When
time.
you're like forced to read.
Right? Like, oh my God, what do you mean book report? And it was a couple of years ago. I did some CEO training with Patrick Bet-David,
Okay.
and that was literally like, okay, you got a book. I want a book report done in a month. I'm like, what do you like? Like I'm 42 years old. Why do I gotta do a book report? But it was, I mean, it was, I mean, these are business books, right? And these
Yeah.
are like, and they're good books, and they're like, and then you do it with a bunch of different people, and you all like, what did you take out of it? Because there's a lot in some of these business books. What did you take? And like, so it was it very interesting. So as I grow my company, and as we become full-time people, I'm definitely going to implement it
Yeah.
because I mean, a lot of these books are not just like how to sell 101, right? It's more how do you maintain your business? So in our world, we deal with people all day and all night,
Yep.
right? Real estate agents. The reason why I didn't become a real estate agent because I didn't want to be driving around on the weekends, right? Like,
That is part of
so
it.
yes, so for your, I give you a lot of props to do that. Agents do that and get called like, hey, I think I got an easy morning on Saturday morning, or and then all of a sudden you got like, hey, it's Friday night. I want to see these 4 homes tomorrow morning. Like,
Changes very quickly.
right.
Yeah.
So and you got to do it. Um, so anyway, but handling your job and then personal and family,
The
and it's
balance.
it's a-
That
it's a
balance.
finding the balance, and growing into it, and making sure that your partner knows that this is your livelihood too and understands that because that's
Yeah.
very very hard. This industry, like it's people don't really see, and this is, not to bring up the whole Keller Williams, lawsuit that just got settled after 3.5 hours of jury debate, right?
Yeah.
Um, and is it going to change the industry a little bit? It will. Is it going to be for some time? Probably not. And the interesting is like Washington already had this case, a couple other, and it's just the way it gets now relayed to a seller, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's, we talk about it like, oh my gosh, the buyer's agents are worried about their commission, and we're worried about like now the buyers, they don't even have enough for down payment plus closing costs. How are they going to pay their agent? And I really do feel the agents are so important. And they keep saying like, no, we can sell their house online. There's all this marketing, there's all this stuff. Like there is so much that goes into it,
Yeah.
and I've had the for sale by owners, and I hate those transactions because I'm not a real estate agent, but guess who gets answering these questions? Me, right? Like, well, this is why you have to have an agent, right?
Yeah.
Who's looking out to protect you? And then they're like, well,
Right.
the agents make so much money. I'm like, well, do they? They're self-employed, right? They got to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
They got to pay for marketing. They
Yep.
got to pay for their desk or whatever else. And when it comes down to it, they got a transaction coordinator. It's
Yeah.
like when they really look at like, no, they didn't make all that,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of people that goes into this, and
Yeah.
it's I'm going down this rabbit hole talking about this, but on the transaction side, on the lending side, right? Why did lending costs go up so much? Because there's technology involved. There's, how many hands that have to touch it
Oh yeah.
so you can go through a transaction, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got to get paid
Everyone
along
has to get paid.
the way,
Yeah,
right?
there's so many people, involved in a transaction.
Not just you and me, right?
No, it's not. There's a
Right?
lot more to it. And, you know, if someone were to ask, like, why do I need an agent? Well, I mean, there's so many like, real estate jargon in the contracts, in the contracts itself.
Right.
It's sometimes even hard for, people to understand just the contracts and what they mean. And if you're, selling for sale by owner and you have a buyer with an agent, I feel like they kind of have the upper hand a little bit.
Right.
If you don't have someone going up to bat for you who speaks the same language as
Right.
the agents, and to put out fires and deal with all the messy things so that you can actually just enjoy the transaction.
Right. Right.
I take on that stress and I take on, all of those the things that can come up. That's my responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's, sometimes it's maybe paying for convenience, having an agent, but having someone in your corner to go up to bat for you, and to advocate for you in your best interest, I don't know.
In the grand
It's
scheme
worth
of
it.
things, it's absolutely worth it in my
Yeah.
opinion, right? Unless you are like seasoned, you've bought a number of homes and you know the language, and
Yeah.
there's people that do,
Yes.
right? I know some very intelligent people that can do their own work,
Absolutely.
right? And
Yep.
they do, and they will study and study and study and learn how to do everything. And YouTube teaches people so much. But
Right.
I always go back to my first transaction. I was 26 when I bought my home, and you know, I didn't even ask. I didn't know what questions to ask, and I was like, okay, well, how much cash do I have, and what's my payment, right? Those are the two things that I care about,
Right.
right? Like, and like at that time, rates were upper sixes, or I think I paid like 6.8, and this is like 2006. Um, so after that, after the crash happened, rates come way down, so my
Yeah.
next house is like 4.5,
Yeah.
right? So, and then, obviously we went through COVID where they artificially, they bought all the bonds and brought the rates way down, and we won't see those rates ever again in our lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, I hope we don't, right? Because if we
That was a
do,
crazy market. My
yes,
goodness,
yes, it
like,
was.
and especially because I do work with a lot of first time buyers, and that was, I mean, they were getting, outbid almost every house, there
Right,
was, and they were going, if you weren't like cash on a cash offer, and then we're waiving inspections, like, my goodness, why are we doing that?
right,
Just the create sight unseen,
right,
people just buying houses that they haven't even looked at in
right,
person.
right,
That is crazy, and I would never suggest, especially not a first time home buyer. There's some investors who kind of are able to do that and be very calculated about it, and that's cool. But working with clients,
right.
that yeah, it was a crazy market. So
Yeah, yeah.
it was pretty discouraging for them.
Yes, and I think we're gonna get, to be honest, I think 2024 is still gonna be a tough year, right? And then 2025 that's going to be a big year. Because I honestly think, and this is what I wanted, my commitment to all my real estate partners is how do we grow together, right? How do we make it through the next 15 months,
Right.
right? Because there's numbers thrown out there that like 75% of the industry will be wiped out, in the next year. But not to be doom and gloom, there's transactions to be made. There's people, if you do the right steps and you are the expert, you become the expert.
Yes.
Like I'm very, if you look at like professional athletes, how did they get to where they're at? You as a hockey player, you practiced and practiced and practiced and
Yeah.
got to be as good as you are. So
Yeah.
you take that the same attitude into this job, you can do that. You
Yeah.
can be successful and
Yeah.
you can give that commitment to your clients,
Absolutely.
and that's what springboards that whole thing. And then you have your biggest year. We might have a really tough year. You know, Personally, I think it rates will probably bounce back sooner than later just because it kind of some of the economic headwinds that we have coming up, which again is going to give buying opportunities for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And we just literally talked about it on the last podcast. Right now we're on November 8th today, and this is my favorite time of year for buyers lately because we can get closing costs.
Yes.
We can do 3-2-1 buy downs or 2-1 buy downs. Or,
Yeah.
we can get different things. We can get discounts right now, and because a lot of people, it is a struggle to come up with that extra money,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
You don't have to have 20% down, but it still is, in most cases at the minimum, 6-7% minimum down, right? But pushing 8% if you're doing everything yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, in life, if you got to starting a family that you can see, but then we have programs to help you out with that. So there's a lot there. That's why, always connecting with an agent, with your, as a borrower or buyer, we always talk borrowers on our side. You guys are buyers,
Yeah.
right? Anyway, just letting them know that talking to someone sooner than later is always your best bet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
being prepared, right?
It is. Yeah. And just having someone who is, a reliable resource who, knows the ins and outs and also knows the local market that you're shopping in, is huge.
Right.
The consumer has so much information, just at their fingertips, and that wasn't the case, in the industry or anywhere, honestly, in the world, years ago.
Right.
So, I mean, people are a lot more informed, which is great. But there still is kind of a need
You
for
still have to
human
be able
support.
to decipher that language,
Yeah.
decipher that information too.
Yeah.
And, like one of the things that I've always seen, really good agents is like, here, yeah, this home's great. We looked at 4 homes today. Which ones are the best? Here's the cons of each one, right?
Yeah.
This is the busy street. This is this, or
Right.
and there's different things that you can go through where they might not see that.
Yeah. I mean,
Because
people don't buy and sell every day, but we do.
right. And they go into a house and like, oh my God, this is it. I love this house, and they maybe mask over some of the imperfections and some of
Mhm.
the other things. Like, yeah, it's a beautiful house,
Yeah.
but it's not on the best. Like, you got 2 dogs and you're on a, very short yard,
Yeah.
busy street or something.
Right.
You can identify these things where,
Yes.
people might just be like, oh yeah. So
And that's what
getting
we're there for, to be a voice of reason. Because I mean, a lot of it is emotional, and
Mhm.
people fall in love with a house. And then sometimes it may not even match the criteria that we've been looking at,
Right,
and we're just looked at it and they just happen to like it, and that's
right,
totally fine.
right.
But just to sit back down with them and just make sure that this is actually what they will be happy with, not just right now, but years to come.
Yes.
So just helping them kind of reason through that and kind of sift through, what's logical and what's emotional, and, finding a balance between that when making a decision.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy to have you on, and I
It's
look
been
forward to
great.
doing business with you.
Yeah.
And so how do people get a hold of you?
Anyway, you can call me, you can text me,
Okay.
email me, you can go on my Instagram. Um,
And by the way, we'll have all these links in the podcast. You'll be able to
yeah,
see us on YouTube and all the podcast sites. So we'll have that up and running here shortly. But
sounds good.
awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's
Everyone like
been a
and
pleasure.
subscribe. And please reach out to Alyssa. Oh, one more thing. You are Maple Grove office,
Yeah,
but you probably work all around the Twin
I'll
Cities.
go I'm licensed in Minnesota. I'll go anywhere pretty much. Yeah, but I operate out of, the Maple Grove office of Keller Williams.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you all